Hello there. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 638. This is the pre-show for Monday evening, April 9th, 2018. This is a magical, marvelous part of this program that the people listening on the audio side don't get to hear. Only those watching on YouTube. We share three things here. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we occasionally say very outrageous things. So thanks for taking the time to spend with us this evening. And the cast is gathering around this digital mahogany table that is so well polished. Kim, how are you feeling this evening?
The weekly check-in. I am doing ever better every week, and tonight I'm feeling great. Thanks, James. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for asking. All is well here. Brian Peters, let's just see how you're doing.
Fabulous. Couldn't be
Did you ever
better.
get any rest? You worked like for what, 87 days without a day off?
It seems like it. I actually worked 7 straight, and I'm just part-time.
Kind of like working for the Weather Service again, huh?
Oh, just about. Wow. Yeah. April 8th was a very interesting day. I've never delivered any information from the pulpit of a church.
Well, I'd like to hear about this. Did you sermonize? What were
No,
you doing?
no, I really didn't. I just kind of reflected, if you will, on the events of April 8th.
Well, where was this?
I was at the National Weather Service putting out warnings for the April 8th, 98 tornado.
Where was this? Where was the
event,
church?
It was the commemoration at the Edgewater United Methodist Church, which was destroyed in the April 8th, 98 tornado.
Okay.
And they had a commemoration service, and James, you'll really get a kick out of this. Channel 13 showed up to film.
Oops.
They didn't film much but they did an interview with one or two of the people there, but they didn't film much when they saw the program.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thing. I spoke at Oak Grove High School, and the other stations showed up, and don't know. I just don't know. Don't think they showed too much of that. But that's okay. No, we had a great time. It was very moving. For those that don't know, we had an EF5 tornado here 20 years ago. This was April 8th, 1998. Brian was working at the National Weather Service. He issued the warning for the storm, the tornado warning, and then later he would rate the tornado.
Yeah, make sure you underscore that I was just part of the team that did it. I mean,
I understand that, but still, you had your hand heavily involved in that, and
yes, sir.
So 20 years came through quickly, and we had all these services, and so many lives were touched. It killed 32 people in one county, Jefferson, which is the county in which Birmingham is located. It killed 2 more from a separate tornado east of here. And I spoke at one of the high schools, the high school that was destroyed by that, and it was very touching. They had the high school choir. They were performing Amazing Grace while 2 students read off the names of the 32 people that died.
Oh, wow.
I don't think there was a dry eye in the joint, and it was packed in there.
Yeah. James, this is the first time I've done something like this, and I was a little bit surprised. My wife helped me put together kind of a speech, and I was kind of surprised. I had trouble in a few spots. I didn't exactly, break out in tears or anything, but I kind of choked up at a few places, and that was kind of surprising.
Well, old men cry easily. I've learned that.
Is that it?
I have cried more in the last 5 years. What it is, we're going through male menopause. Old men have hormone problems. But by the way, Kim, the link is in the chat room for our guests, so you can cut that and send it. That's the magical link to get our guest in here. No, I'll be at a 5th grade graduation at some school. I have no children there. They start playing that Pomp and Circumstance. I'll just cry like an infant. I've got.
It must be old man hormones.
It is. We've got, and they played Bill Castle's video at this thing at Oak Grove High School, and this was the original video that Bill did right after this happened. And I think it's his best one.
Is that what you gave them?
Yes.
Yes, that's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And
by the way, congratulations to you. I was very impressed with our special.
Yeah, no, and again, I don't mean to hog up the pre-show with no, wait a minute. Yeah, we do. We share boring personal stories here. That's part of the deal.
Absolutely.
You are hearing a boring personal story. But if you would like to see the 30-minute special that features most of us, we have some small part to do with it. It's on YouTube. Just search for ABC 3340 Weather YouTube, and you'll find it. It ran this past Friday. So 30. In fact, it's very interesting. We blew out the 6 o'clock news, which is the highest rated news. I mean, it is a dominant, strong newscast. And they preempted that with this tornado special, which I thought was a pretty gutsy move, but again, it did very well. And Bill Castle put it together, and Bill's the best. So if you want to watch more about what happened here 20 years ago, just you can find it there. We're on the Facebook. It's all over the place. You can find it.
I'll try to put a link in the show notes too.
Yeah, and I think somebody YouTubed my talk, but my talk was not that good. I thought I was off that day. Some days you feel it, some days you don't. But the place was packed out there. I think half the people that lived in that end of the county showed up. This was Friday morning at 10. Of course, then they had all the high school kids there anyway. So I mean, you had the high school kids and everybody from the community came in, and they had all these displays and things like bricks from the old school and clocks that had stopped, at 8 something when the tornado came through, and
oh wow,
papers that had been found in Georgia and things. And it was, and I really didn't. I would love to go back and see all that stuff because it was so crowded and everybody wanted to talk. I didn't get a chance to really see the stuff they had in there, but yeah. Anyway, that's our boring story. So now someone needs to share a humorous anecdote.
Well, it's not boring at all. I was actually wondering if you guys, do you feel like it's been 20 years? Does it feel like it's been that long? Isn't that the funny thing? I mean, how can 20 years go so fast?
Amen.
I guess your tornado of 99, you got your 20th coming up next year, don't you, Kim? You were, of course, 2 years old, but yeah.
I remember I wasn't two. Oh gosh, I think I was in middle school or high school. I was in high school. But I remember seeing it on TV. I grew up outside of Chicago, and we had our own set of F5s and F4s there when I was a kid. But I remember when the Plainfield tornado, it had been 20 years, and just thinking that's impossible. So I was wondering how you guys were feeling with this one.
Yeah, it's goodness. And you know what I didn't talk about this publicly, but I've shared it before. You know, we almost had a near miss in the helicopter that morning, or the next morning after the tornado happened at night, and we were flying, and some jabroni from out of town came zipping in there, and our pilot said an ugly word, and he doesn't say ugly words, and the helicopter just radically changed direction and altitude, and he said it was within a few hundred feet of a hit, midair collision. This guy didn't check in with the flight controllers at the Birmingham airport, and he got in, and I don't know who the guy was, but I know he got fined in a big way, but he was trying to get video from the air before anybody else. And I don't know if he just maybe didn't think anybody else was flying through there or what, but goodness.
So I should thank you for clearing the air before I flew with the state troopers, huh?
Yeah. We turned the jabroni in, so he was gone by the time you got there.
I think the airspace was mostly clear of any aircraft when I flew. And I think it was very early. It was either very late morning or very early afternoon. I don't remember the exact time.
Yeah, it was. I think you flew about 1 o'clock. And
that sounds about right.
We flew at 5 a.m. We flew at first light of day.
I was so envious of you, James.
I will never forget getting out there to that heliport here, that pad out there. And of course, we don't know what you never know what you're going to expect until the first light of day. And I said, let's go out to this high school, because we knew that it had been hit, and it was just like jaws were dropping. And of course, it was live, and I'm thinking, goodness, this is, and it just got worse, and it got worse as you kept on going, and thinking, where is this going to stop? But
yeah, you were spoken of. I ran into at the time Governor Fob James at the National Guard Armory there on Lakeshore and Oxmoor, and
yes.
I was trying to get in touch with the state police incident commander, and I went up to the second floor of that building and turned to the right to go down this hall, and there's like this tsunami of people coming down the hall at me, and right in the middle is the governor of the state of Alabama. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, I'm in the wrong place. But we had a very nice chat about, and your name came up in the chat.
Oh boy, Brian, this is Governor Fob James here. I'd like to thank you for your service, and let's go fly and look at this tornado damage here.
Yeah,
all the Alabama governors sound like Foghorn Leghorn.
And I'll tell you something about Governor Fob James. He did not like flying in the helicopter.
We ought to go back and get J.B. Elliott's story of flying over the April 4th, 1977.
Yes.
F5 damage in the air sickness issues.
Yes. Well, and wasn't it in 74 when Bob Ferry almost
threw up? JB's had a history of air sickness issues with flying over tornado damage. And I think Ted Fujita was flying around April 4th to 77, or the day after.
Yeah. April 4th.
Anyway.
Whoa. Okay. Was that Smithfield? 77.
Yeah, Smithfield.
Was
77 was Smithfield.
Yeah. I know Fujita was here in 74. Was he here in 77 too?
Yes, he was. In fact, we what's cool, we can actually go back and dig up the WeatherBrains episodes with JB. The one good thing about doing this show is that we basically recorded history.
Yeah.
By JB sharing all these stories over the years, and we missed him, and the show will never be the same. But we got it recorded, and we can go back and listen to this stuff. So in a way, we were able to capture history through his memory. And, as JB got older, his memory started to fade. JB was, struggling in the last few years of his life, but he was very sharp for so long, and those memories are great. Yeah. Hey, let's see here. Aubrey, give me a sound check.
You're muted, Aubrey.
Hello.
There we go.
See, you never have sound problems anymore.
I know. I have my nice snowball, and I apologize for eating. I'm starving.
No, eat away, please. What's for dinner?
Yeah, what's for dinner?
I had ice cream twice this weekend, so I am on a strictly vegetable diet. So I have corn and cauliflower tonight.
I only had ice cream once this weekend.
Corn and cauliflower. That's your show title.
See, what happened was apparently last night was WrestleMania, and at my house, due to my brother and my husband being fans, I know too much about wrestling, more than I should know. And last night was an ice cream night, even though it was 30 degrees.
Wow. Notice I've got my WeatherBrains hoodie on tonight. It's we're wearing these hoodies late in the season. Hey, Matt, talk to us. Give us an audio check. How you doing?
Check. Hey, how you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome.
Very good.
Wow, a guest without issues.
Well, 2 weeks ago we had that horrible audio. Last week was flawless with the author, and this week I think it's going to be good. So that'll make our audio-only listeners happy. And hello, good evening. Welcome to our television viewers. It is now 30 minutes after the hour. We are joining local television stations here in our part of the world, down here in the Deep South. You know what this is. It's Monday night. It's WeatherBrains. Speaking of television viewers, I had more TV viewers commenting on the episode about folklore from a couple of weeks ago, the one where the audio was so bad. But that really, I've never had that much response from the television viewers, so I thought that was interesting. But I think
I'm so jealous of Aubrey after that episode.
Why?
Because the author sent you the book.
No, I bought the book.
Oh, I thought you said she sent it to you.
No, I bought the book.
Oh, okay. I'm not so jealous then.
I was like, why? No, I have yet to read it. I've glanced at a couple pages, but I'm excited. I was excited to find it. So no, I bought it.
Oh, well, good. I'm going to go out and buy it because
you can buy it too.
I think the folklore stuff is absolutely fascinating.
It was, and it's that stuff that you're kind of like, oh, like that makes sense. It makes total scientific sense, but when you put it in the terms that she did, it was really fascinating.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna get the book too. I thought it was a great show. I enjoyed it better listening to it the second time because we get so distracted in here. But let's start this thing. Here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is WeatherBrains episode number 638 for April 9th, 2018. Right here in the core of the Dixie Alley tornado season. WeatherBrains is the weekly show that's all about weather. My name is James, and we have with us an esteemed group here. We got some absentees tonight. We have Rick Smith, who is going to have to miss tonight. Rick is out in Norman, and we've got Kevin Selly, who is going to be out, I think, tonight in Wichita Falls. Bill Murray. Brian, I think it's 50-cent beer night down at Hooters, right? That's tonight.
So we've lost Bill for the night, huh?
Yeah, whenever that happens, Bill just magically is off the show. And Nate Johnson with NBC Television is at the National Association of Broadcasters annual meeting. And those things are typically in Las Vegas. I honestly don't know where it is this year, but he said he had an NAB dinner. Now, come on, man.
Yeah.
What do you want to go to some dull dinner at some NAB with a bunch of jabronis, or do you want to hang out with your buddies, weather weenies here? I mean, come on, man. But see, when you're at that corporate level like Nate is now, you have to do what you have to do, Brian. Brian, nice thing about the two of us, we're not at anybody's level. We're just down here in the low levels, which is where I like to be.
Absolutely. I would say the gutter, but we don't go quite that low.
Well, sometimes we do. Before this show is over, we might go there. But for those that don't know, Brian is a longtime warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service. He retired, came over to the dark side about, 14, 15 years ago? How long has it been, man?
14 years. Can you believe that?
Wow. We were just talking 20 years ago in our market down here in Birmingham. We had a horrible F5 tornado that killed 32 people in Jefferson County, Alabama. And Brian was on duty that night at the Weather Service, and the next day he came out and rated the tornado on F5 back then. There's no EF back then.
Yeah. And
we just did the 20th anniversary of that tornado. And you know, Brian, you don't work too many F5s in your career. That's a pretty rare thing.
You're right. And then to top it all off, after I came to work for you, I got to fly through a Category 5 hurricane.
Yeah, man.
How many meteorologists? I wonder how many meteorologists there are in the world who have worked an F5 event and then flown through a Category 5 hurricane.
Wow.
I bet there's
You
not
might
many.
be the only one.
Should start a list.
There's probably not many out there. That's for sure. Wow.
We should start a list.
Yeah.
Aubrey, you've not done that, have you?
Oh my gosh, I haven't even seen a funnel cloud. Here in no man's land in the Shenandoah Valley. I think I may have seen a funnel cloud once, but I can't verify it. I was still going to school, so I think it was actually just Scud. But I've seen broad rotation as a supercell has developed. That's it.
You live in one of the most beautiful parts of this great country. Come on now.
I do, but I have been in several hurricanes, but not a Category 5.
Yeah, I've kind of retired from hurricanes. I used to love to go to these things. Let's see, Brian. My first one was one called Hurricane Frederick.
Oh, yes.
Hit the Central Gulf Coast in September of 1979. This is embarrassing. This was my first week on television here in this market. And this is 2018. I mean, this is like 39 years ago. But back in those days, it was interesting to me to cover these things on the coast. You did now. The reason I don't like going down there, literally, you have more media people than local residents. And you got all these blow-dried boobs lined up, trying to, hey, let me get on television because I'm kind of a big deal. They're trying to draw attention to themselves. And I want to go to tell the story of the people that live there. Yeah. And nobody, it's just like, I don't fit in anymore. And I just don't do it. So I've retired and Brian goes now. Brian, you're our man. Frederick was a 3. And goodness, I did Andrew, but I didn't do Andrew in Florida. I did Andrew in Louisiana.
Louisiana, yeah.
Which was, I believe, a 3 at the time it made that second landfall. It was, the 5 was down in Florida.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of amazing. You mentioned Andrew, and most people immediately think of Florida. They don't think of the second landfall in Louisiana.
Right. It was kind of the forgotten landfall, if you will.
Yeah.
And it came in a fairly sparsely populated part of the state. There was a significant tornado, oddly enough, in one of the spiral bands. Probably did more damage in Laplace, Louisiana, but I was there for that. And but no, F5s, you don't work a lot of those. We obviously worked 3, April 27, 2011, and we worked the one back in 1998. And Brian, that might be our last ones. I hope so.
Let's hope so. Yes, yeah. And but Aubrey, another anniversary is coming up, James, and that's March 27th, 1994.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, it's not exactly, it's, 24th anniversary this year, but it'll be the 25th next year.
Yeah, that'll be next year. That was the Goshen United Methodist Church. We had an EF4 that hit a church during the morning worship service that killed 20 people in the church service. And they were doing a Palm Sunday drama, an Easter drama on Palm Sunday morning. And that was horrific as well. But Aubrey, let's quit talking about bad storms. Talk about something good. How cold is it up there?
It's so cold.
How cold is it?
36 degrees, and it snowed this morning, and it snowed Saturday afternoon.
Ooh.
First time since I've been here where it snowed in April, let alone snowed twice in April. Now, the only accumulation was this morning because Saturday, obviously in the afternoon, we didn't get any accumulation. It's got to be widely significant and freezing for days to even attempt to get accumulation on an April afternoon. But this morning, our southern county got about a half an inch of slushy, wet April snow. But you know what? By Friday, I'm forecasting a high of 83, which is about 2 degrees shy of our record high. So we almost set a record low max today. Unfortunately, our high was at midnight, so we missed that, but we could set a record high by Friday. So,
wow, that's crazy stuff.
What a turnaround!
Can you imagine what people are talking about here? A lot of them are talking about the weather.
I guess
it's good for business. Did you guys see the pictures at Wrigley Field today?
Yeah.
Yes.
I did not.
Another home opener postponed.
They were out. Those guys looked like a bunch of 8-year-old boys out there having fun in the snow. They post. Now, what's interesting, the Cubs postponed the game. The White Sox played. They cleared the field and got the game in. So now they're mocking the Cubs. But that was interesting. But Kim Cloco, Dr. Cloco McLean, let's bring in our guest before he hangs up on us.
Sure thing. Well, after all this discussion of severe weather and tropical weather, we're going to pivot into another kind of weather, something that was a big news item over this winter. Well, the enduring winter that we're still in for many. And we're going to talk about wildfire. So Matt Solemn is our guest tonight. Matt, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing well, and thanks so much for being on tonight. Matt is Western Region Headquarters. He's a regional response and preparedness specialist. And I want you to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But first, I think it'd be great if you could talk a little bit about what happened out in your region this winter, some of the wildfires, and what their impact was in that area.
Yeah, so the focus of what I'm going to talk about today was in California. California had a pretty significant wildfire season back in last year of 2017. Numbers showed over 9,000 wildfires across the state alone, burning over 1.2 million acres. As far as structures and that, close to 11,000 structures were burned. And upwards of just shy of 50 people passed away as a result of the wildfires as well. So pretty large amount of destruction and unfortunately fairly significant number of fatalities as well, just in California alone.
Yeah, definitely. And to put us back into that place where the state was experiencing these wildfires, when they happened, about how much lead time did people have in some of these fire events before they overtook their communities?
I don't have exact numbers on lead time or anything like that, but our weather forecast offices in California did an excellent job of getting the word out a number of days in advance that the conditions were ripe for significant wildfires. The Northern California event was preceded by very strong and significant and damaging winds that led to some of those wildfires. And due to the high speeds, the wildfires really traveled rapidly. It was a nighttime event, so that made it even more challenging as well, because a lot of people were sleeping and may not have been aware that wildfires were ongoing, while they're sleeping. But our offices got the word out as best they could, and in turn, the emergency management officials also did what they could to notify as many people as possible.
Matt, what were some of the forward speeds of those fires?
The wind speeds were in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour. I don't have the rate that the wildfires were traveling, but you can kind of relate that. That strong of winds, the dry fuels, it didn't take long for those fires to spread, and a lot of the fires started in urban interfaces too. So as soon as that took off, that's where we saw the large number of homes and other structures destroyed.
Yeah, that sounds like the same kind of challenge you have when you're dealing with hurricanes and tornado warnings. These cells are moving at 50 or 60, 70 miles an hour. And boy, fires moving that fast, hard to get the warnings out far enough in advance.
Yeah, like I said, we just don't know where the fires are going to start, but our offices did an excellent job in getting the word out that those conditions were ripe, though. And in turn, I know the emergency management officials did get the word out, but even then, when those fires started, it's hard to predict where they're going to start. And with that rate of speed, it made it a lot more challenging at night.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of that, I'm sure, triggers everybody's memories of these events. And there were a lot of well-known, well-publicized images, too, that came out of those fires, especially as they were affecting such populated areas and well-known areas of the state. So thanks for that overview. One of the things I'd like to ask you about is actually your job title. So you're a regional response and preparedness specialist. That might be a position that not everybody is familiar with within the Weather Service. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the trajectory you took to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated from the University of North Dakota up in Grand Forks. Got to, just a little weather tidbit, got to experience the all-time record low up there when I was at school, 43 below with no wind chill. So that was one of my highlights weather-wise of school.
That's cold.
It's very cold. But you said it was negative 43 degrees Fahrenheit?
43 below, yeah, without wind chill.
Okay. Yeah.
Just thinking about that number makes me shiver.
Yeah, does that make you feel a little bit better, Aubrey, about how cold it is out there? At least it's not that.
Yeah, I'll take my 36 and be quiet.
Yeah.
So between my junior and senior year of college, I had a summer internship out at the forecast office in Billings, Montana. And right after I graduated, moved into an intern position out there and worked my way up to a general forecaster. Was in Billings for about 7 years, working the forecast desk there. And then about 6.5 years ago, I moved down to Western Region headquarters and been there ever since. And one of my main duties there is working in our regional operations center. Kind of think of it as a weather forecast office, but kind of responsibility and oversight over the entire Western U.S. We provide a lot of internal support to our forecast offices. We do collaboration calls and provide support when they have equipment issues and other things like that, especially during big events. We also provide weather support and briefings for partners that have a bigger footprint than what a local forecast office or a state has. For example, FEMA regions, EPA regions, and the like. And those FEMA regions, for example, have the footprint of 4 states. We have two main FEMA regions in our area that we provide weather forecast information for, and it's FEMA Region 9 and FEMA Region 10. And a unique thing that we also do is we do provide support to the state of California as well, in conjunction with the 10 forecast offices that have responsibility for some part of California. And we started that back in 2011 and have been kind of enhancing that relationship ever since. So we provide daily, or not daily, but weekly email briefings to the state of California, looking out 7 days, providing any significant impacts that might impact their operations or might cause them to enhance their operations levels there at the state. And also during big events, for example, the wildfires and also other big events that they have in the state of California, we'll get on the phone and we'll collect all that forecast information from all 10 forecast offices in California, put that together and provide a concise, consistent messages for the entire state of California, whether it be daily emails to them during the big events or get on the phone and do a statewide weather briefing as well.
I'm sure that was all very valuable for them during these events. And one of the reasons that I thought that your perspective could be so neat and why I wanted to ask you onto the show is to talk a little bit about the deployments that you did. So this past winter, while those events were going on, one of the ways that you provided support to all those entities was actually to deploy out to California. And can you tell us a little bit about what drove the need for the deployments, and when did that really start? Is that something that has been going on for a long time? How do you guys manage deployments when the need arises?
Yeah, so one of the things that I mentioned is our relationship with the state of California is definitely enhanced over the years. And this last fall, we got to a point where when they started to activate their state operations centers to full activation 24/7, that they really saw the benefit and the need for a meteorologist on site there in person that can provide weather support to any person in that room. And so when we got the call, and with our relationship with the state of California, we were coordinating with the local office there in Sacramento and trying to decide who the right person is to deploy out there and who had the best resources as well. And so one of those calls came mid-afternoon on a Tuesday, and by that night, about 6 hours later, I was on a plane to Sacramento. And ended up staying out there for about 2 weeks, mainly working what they call the B shift, which is the night shift. It's 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And we're basically sitting in the operations center there and providing weather briefings to the entire crowd that's there. But also we had folks that came up to us at all times looking for just specific forecast information for their needs. And so it was kind of it's a result of our relationship with the state of California and kind of the enhancement over the last few years. And so, but it's a little different than our traditional deployments in the past with our incident meteorologist program or our IMETs, as some people know them. And those folks have been deploying for a long time out to support wildfires, but those IMETs are actually on the ground in the camps where the wildfires get their briefings and where they sleep and things like that. And so we're not actually on the ground, at the fires themselves. We're in the State Operations Center in Sacramento, providing support for all the agencies in that room. FEMA, EPA, the Red Cross, USGS, the Department of Transportation, all those different agencies working together to make sure that the response for the wildfires, the boots on the ground, are getting what they need. And it's really a lot of the work in there is providing and coordinating resources to those folks out actually fighting the fires and coordinating evacuations and things like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's so interesting about wildfire. It's really, there's some weather hazards where the Weather Service plays a really huge role in the communication that goes on about the hazard and how to mitigate it. And in fire, it's really a game that so many players are in, from local levels to state, federal levels. What's it like in that EOC? And when the events were kind of at their craziest, can you describe what that was like for you? Any interesting stories or memories from that?
Yeah, it really gets the adrenaline pumping. When you get out, past that first week, you're working 12-hour days. First you have to sleep in a hotel, and it's not always pleasant having to sleep in a hotel, especially during the day. When you got the people coming in and out of the rooms, you got the cleaning service and things like that. So you're not really getting much sleep during the day, but the adrenaline, working that type of an event and that type of atmosphere really keeps you going. It's pretty high paced, pretty fast paced, especially when the wildfires are very active and burning in those urban environments. And there's always something to do, because even if you're not providing weather briefings, we're collaborating with the other forecast offices in California, collecting any updated information that they're putting in their official forecast packages. And we're always constantly looking at the weather, because you never know when someone's going to come up to you and ask a specific question. And it could be anything from wind speeds to how much rain folks are going to get, and all those weather parameters are critical to various agencies that are supporting their folks out in the field. And when the wildfire started to die down a little bit, it really turned into a recovery aspect and a cleanup. With all those structures burned, they had to do a ton of ash removal and remove foundations from homes to kind of dig them out of the ground, because it's not safe to build on those old foundations with all the ash and other debris there. So even when the wildfires were done, we weren't so concerned about maybe the wind speeds and where the fire's moving, but we started to turn our concern towards rainfall and how much rain we're going to get, and the timing of that to help the cleanup crews. And so we head into fall. For those folks that don't know, the fall and winter season's the wet time in California, and that's where they typically see most of their rainfall. And that was a big concern after these wildfires heading into the wet season, is how much rain are we going to get? And then we have to turn our attention not only to cleanup, but also the debris flow aspect of it too. So there's always something going on. I think it's you get working those long hours and those long days for that long a stretch. I think the adrenaline keeps you going, and the camaraderie that you start to build in that room with the partners really does help out as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting what you've talked about, there being this dual hazard after the fire. You really do have to start thinking about the mudslide threat. Is that something, one of the things we've sort of been talking about in the show recently has been local knowledge, and how people put together things about the hazards that they experience in the places that they live. Do you feel like that's something that the people of California know to look out for? And if so, what kinds of resources are available to them to know how to mitigate the threat for themselves?
Yeah, I think as of recently, for sure, I think the awareness of those debris flows after wildfires really became a lot more. People have become a lot more knowledgeable of it, especially as of late. And the Thomas Fire, the debris flow after the Thomas Fire down in Southern California, again, was another one of those tragic events that got people really to start thinking about and raising their awareness. And so when these wildfires are starting to die down a little bit, we have a team of hydrologists in the National Weather Service that work with a number of different agencies, the USGS and agencies like that. They go out and they're actually go out to the areas that have burned, and they assess how intense the fires burn, how much vegetation is left, and they do a lot of math and calculations and really determine the risk areas across every single part of the wildfire burn scar. And they take that information, and then we in the National Weather Service, we push that information out to all the emergency management officials, the local, the county, the state, and the federal officials in that area, to make sure that they understand that there could be a potential significant hazard if the right amount of rain fell on this burn scar. A lot of those areas are on steep slopes, like what we saw in Southern California, and right next to housing development, major roads, and things like that. So we're definitely involved, not only from the forecasting the wildfire weather conditions, but as soon as that fire's out, we have a team of hydrologists that go out and work with these various agencies to determine where the biggest threats are, get that word out, and in turn, those emergency managers and those officials do host a lot of times public meetings, and to make sure the public is understand exactly what could happen if the right amount of rain fell.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually have a close colleague of mine. He works at the EPA out in DC, so his life is a very pleasant experience right now. But he's from the Mendocino area, and it's been so interesting to watch this year in particular. His Facebook has changed from just ordinary life stuff to he is just pumping out information about the potential mudslide threat. And he actually has found products that I didn't know existed. Everything from, stuff that the local area emergency management is putting out to the Weather Service. And that's one of the reasons I was brought to ask you this. And I know that for wildfire in particular, there have been new tools because technology has increased at such a rate that we're able to detect fire better, and we're able to map it better and get that information out in real time better. And I feel like the same might be happening for mudslide threat, where what the office is doing in the past, they might have been going out and doing the surveying, and maybe a lot of it was internal. Now we're getting that information out. At least I feel like I'm seeing more of it getting out to the public through more channels, which I think can only be good and seems just like a really neat development in the science and communication.
Yeah, absolutely. With the way the weather models have progressed over the last few years, they've gotten better and more accurate overall in general. We're able to take the information from the hydrologists and the partners out in the field and really get the message out well ahead of a significant event. So if we see a lot of pretty significant heavy rainfall event coming to a susceptible area there, especially a burn scar area, where we know there could be the potential for significant life and property loss, we're getting that message out via our social media channels, our partner emails out to our emergency managers. We're doing phone briefings for our emergency managers and core partners. And we have a lot of internal tools as well that take the information they've learned out in the field, combine it with the forecast models that we use, and it plots it on a map. And we're able to use that internally to also show what the models are showing as far as the amount of precipitation or our most susceptible areas are as well, to help us better communicate those significant risks. So yes, I completely agree with you that as science advances, technology advances, and the models get better, we're able to get that message out a lot further in advance to allow people even more time to prepare. And a great example of that is down in Southern California. Since the Thomas Fire was put out, we had that significant debris flow event that caused that large number of fatalities. After that event, our forecasts have led to evacuations, a day or two in advance of significant rainfall. You're talking thousands of people having to evacuate their homes below the Thomas Fire there in the Santa Barbara, Montecito area, leaving their homes for days. But because of our forecast and our advanced technology and our ability to get the word out to our core partners, those core partners are able to make those types of decisions days in advance, or at least get them thinking that, hey, a significant event is coming. We may need to think about evacuations. So.
Right. That seems like a remarkable innovation to me. I know we often hear about emergency management needing like a 72-hour horizon for hurricanes to get populations out of the way, of much, larger area, of course. But to have the ability to actually forecast a potential mud flow event, I mean, these are really geospatially very specific sort of targeted problems, and the hydrology, that's needed, not just to know where the water is going to go and how it would ordinarily flow through the landscape, but how it would flow through this newly modified landscape is really amazing. Do you have a sense from the partners how they've done with the forecast, and if they feel like this has been something they really appreciate having?
Yeah, they absolutely do, and our local forecast offices have received a lot of kudos and a lot of thanks for the forecasts well in advance, because to move thousands of people, you need some time to do that. You need to be able to go. Those partners and those emergency management officials and the police and fire, they're going door to door, community to community, getting the word out and making sure people at least are aware and evacuating as needed. And so the more time they have the more notice they have for that, the better. And some of the things that our core partners have also been able to do as a result of our forecasts is they've been able to go out to some of these drainage areas and some of these canyons and clean out debris and other things to help the water flow better and remove that risk of debris and mud and rocks a little bit, from flowing downstream and causing more significant impact. And I think we've seen some of that benefit from the last couple heavy rain events in Southern California, that there wasn't as significant of debris flows. And I think some of that's attributed to that. These public works officials, with our relationship with the National Weather Service, have been able to get out and clean some of those channels out and maybe help the water flow better. So yeah, we've definitely seen our local offices have received a lot of significant thanks and praise for those forecasts, especially, we got forecasts out to 5 to 7 days in advance. Hey, the potential for significant rain events coming. So that gives them almost a week lead time or more to take any kind of necessary actions that they need.
Yeah. That seems amazing. And for those folks, probably a relatively new capability, something that they've never gotten the chance to maybe do quite like they're doing now. So that's really neat to hear about. So, going back to the fires, I'm interested, during your deployments, what was the most surprising thing to you in how those events unfolded from the perspective you had in the EOC?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning thing that I think we've learned from deployments, especially those deployments, at least for me, is how much you hear in person being in that room and how beneficial it is. Everyone's got a smartphone these days. Everyone's got a computer these days, especially the folks that are working in that environment. So there's always weather information, whether it's from the National Weather Service or whether they're looking at kind of shopping around. Those folks are always looking at different, making sure that everything's kind of consistent across the board from the different platforms they may use. Even though we're sitting right across the room from them, the advantage of being in the room there and on site is you can hear those conversations going on. You can stand up and walk over and kind of put to rest any myths or rumors that might be going on as well. Another surprising thing to me is, for me, being out there, not having been on site for an event like this, is how it transitions so quickly from response to recovery and how much goes into cleanup, and how many different agencies are involved. I didn't even realize that how much ash there is, how much debris removal that they had to go in and remove thousands of foundations, concrete foundations from thousands of different homes and businesses, and being able to see where the National Weather Service forecast can really benefit, just those kind of decisions. And I think being on site and the way our agency's moving to do more on-site deployment, I think is really important to gain this kind of experience and bring that back and share with other folks that will be going out eventually.
Yeah, I wonder if, from the perspective, especially of some of the folks on our panel who have worked operational, meteorology, there's in our field such a focus on the preparedness stage of the event, and within an event communication, we don't often get to do stuff that involves recovery, and I feel like that could be a really nice and an enriching thing to be a part of, because we're always there trying to warn of the disaster. We're there for the disaster, and then we kind of, for many of us, our job sort of ends there, but the real task for the communities is just beginning, and that involves so many people. How did that feel for you? And I don't know if anybody else in the panel wants to chime in on that point, but did you particularly enjoy being able to be a part of some of recovery operations?
Yeah, you go into an event like that, especially right in the heart of it, and people are losing their homes, people are dying, and it kind of makes you choke up a little bit to see that kind of destruction. But you also gain an appreciation and kind of a warm feeling inside that you're there providing weather information for folks to make decisions to try to lessen the life loss and the property destruction. So it kind of makes you feel really good inside, at least for me, that, we're out there serving the public, being a public servant and being on the ground, doing that. The initial event doesn't last too long, but the recovery is still going on out there. And so that's going to continue for years down the road. Whether people rebuild there or not, it's hard to say, but the recovery aspect is so much longer. And to me, it shows that we not only have, like you said, the preparedness side of things you have during the event, but also the recovery aspect of it. And the recovery is usually the longest piece. But for me, it's always a good feeling to know that you did what you could. And I don't think you ever truly know if you saved any lives or you saved any property, but I think going home at the end of the day, getting back on that plane or getting back in the car, heading home from a deployment like that, I think, I think you have a feeling inside that you did some good work, and you made a difference wherever you could. So,
yeah, that's truly wonderful. And did you have the chance to see any of the post-event damage? Did you go to see any of the places where the fires had been?
No, I didn't get a chance to actually drive out there. When I got off, I basically got on a plane and came home, so I didn't get a chance to drive out there. It was a little bit of a drive from where I was at, especially the Northern California ones. They were west of Sacramento, a good hour and a half to 2 hours away, but I didn't get a chance to. But being in that operations center, we did see plenty of pictures and videos of the destruction, from the national news to for those folks just sending pictures into the operations center. So, it was just kind of jaw dropping. You just, some of that stuff you see in movies and things like that, and you just never think that can really happen in real life, and then to actually see it and then go be out a part of it was pretty amazing, and not in a good way, but just wow, it's like it made me speechless just watching those drone videos flying over these neighborhoods that are just completely burned to the ground. Is just incredibly sad to see that can happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it can happen so quickly. I know here in Oklahoma, that was something when I moved here for grad school, I was prepared for the tornadoes. I was prepared for the hail. I was prepared for wind. I even was prepared for maybe flash flooding. I figured all kinds of things, would happen here. But the wildfire part was not something, I don't know that anyone can really be prepared for that. It's a different kind of hazard to care for. It can start so easily from anywhere. There is some predicting it with general conditions, but specifically where it's going to be, it can be a careless cigarette that, so you're at work and then you hear a report that there's smoke out toward where your apartment is or where your house is. And you just have to pray, oh my God, please don't be our house. And, it leaves a different kind of scar, both on you and on the community. My husband and I were walking around behind our house. There's a little area that's going to be a little area of brush and stuff where they're building the next stage of our subdivision. And we were thinking, man, I kind of hope that they clear this out so that we can actually abate some of our wildfire threat. We live at sort of the wildland interface. And, you know, being from Chicago, these are things I never thought about ever in my life, like never. But when you live out in a place where you have wildfire threat is a more substantial threat, it is a really important thing, and it's just a different part of the landscape, I guess. An interesting threat to deal with. Well, probably what you got to interact with it a lot, even if just remotely through the EOC. But even if you weren't out there, did you ever get to interact with folks who were in affected communities, or was anybody who was in the EOC from those areas that were being affected?
Yeah, you know, there's I had some friends, and I didn't have any family, but I had a number of friends both in Northern and Southern California that either had to evacuate themselves or had family that evacuated. You know, as social media, you can see all that kind of stuff. And so I saw a lot of friends posting on Facebook and Twitter that they're either themselves or their friends and family had to evacuate. And you just kind of like puts it into perspective that, you know, people that close to you are being impacted. In the State Operations Center itself, you know, there's a ton of people that work for the state of California there. And they have 3 different teams. So we saw a number of different folks rotating in and out over the course of a couple months while the center was open. And there was definitely people that worked for the state of California that were affected and either had to evacuate themselves or had friends or family members that had to evacuate. And hearing some, you know, stories from them, you know, in person, you know, really brings it even closer. Because by the end of those deployments, you almost make you know, some of those people you don't know walking in the door, but you kind of build a bond over time, working those long hours and seeing them day after day after day, and you start to know, you know their names. You start to learn a bit about them, and you know, you start to, you know, gain a little bit of a friendship. And by the end there, you kind of, you know, feel like you're in kind of a friendship circle with those people. And you know, the next time you see them and talking about, you know, these kind of events that are affecting them, it kind of brings it even closer to home. So just based on the bonds and friendships you build with those people that you're working with.
Hey, Matt, in our world, we deal with people that spread bad information about big weather events. These are the guys that forecast snowstorms 2 weeks in advance. They hype up tornado outbreaks, you know, 15, 20 days in advance, because they know that they're going to get clicks, likes, and shares. Do you have that kind of problem in the wildfire forecasting business?
Yeah, I think there is, to a point. It may not be as big as the severe weather aspect of it, you know, the tornado outbreaks and things like that. But there's definitely some of it, you know, even just sitting in the State Operations Center, watching Twitter, you know, just Twitter feeds. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and you know, all that information is getting sifted by folks sitting in the Operations Center, and they're trying to decipher what's real, talking to their folks on the ground and saying, "Hey, we got a report of this. Is that true?" No, it's not true. But all of a sudden, that post, it's so dramatic that it gets hundreds and thousands of likes and shares and retweets, and all of a sudden you have a crisis on your hands. So it does happen for sure, but I don't think, at least from what I've seen personally, I don't think it's as big of an issue as the severe weather outbreaks and those kind of things. But I think as wildfires continue to grow, especially in the West, I think it could become an even bigger problem.
So what's the core way that you reach Joe Q Public? You know, let's say a wildfire breaks out and you've got to urgently reach people that are in the path of this wildfire? Is it traditional media like television? Is it social media? Is it some kind of app? Or what's the core way that you reach people now?
So for us in the National Weather Service, sometimes when events like that happen, our core partners will reach out to us and say they're going to do a civil emergency message, or they're going to activate reverse 911 or things like that. And we do what we can to disseminate that kind of information out through our weather radios, through EAS, the emergency alert system. So we have ways to support their decisions. We don't actually make those decisions, but when those core partners make those decisions, we use every dissemination platform we can as possible to get the word out. And that is through our weather radios, through our social media and things like that. I know the core partners, you hear reverse 911 and even just going door to door out ahead of an event if there's time to do that. But again, as you always hear, after an event, people didn't get the word or the message. You hear that a lot with tornadoes and severe weather and things like that. That definitely happens in the wildfires community as well. We've heard cases of that out west. I don't know specific details, but you hear that in the news and stuff, that people didn't get the message and didn't get notified, and that's a big deal, especially when a lot of these fires happened and started in the middle of the night. So
here in the tornado prone areas, we promote weather radio use. Even here, the percentage of homes that have weather radios, it's fairly low. I would imagine it's pretty low out west too, huh?
Yeah. It's one of the out west here with the sparse population. Not everyone has a cell phone. You get a lot of these rural communities. Some people just don't have phones; they have landline phones, and so in those kind of cases, we do push the weather radios a bit more. But there are a lot of people that don't have them. They rely on their cell phones for alerts and the media and their apps and other social media to get their information. But we still continue to promote the weather radios out here. And but like you said, a lot of people, if we were to take a survey, a lot of people, that number is probably pretty low. So,
and in terms of the social media efforts, how do you? That's one of our struggles. Rephrase that. One of my struggles. I mean, I have all these things I have to do during a tornado event, a severe thunderstorm event, a flood event involving traditional media, television and commercial radio and all the things we have done. And now you throw in Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, all these social platforms, and we don't have any extra people to deal with it. So we're having to learn how to live in this 24-hour world. Do you have any extra staffing for social media? How do you handle social media during a big wildfire?
So during big events, our offices will call in extra people to do things like social media and answer questions and push messaging out to social media. So yeah, we do bring in extra staff for big events like wildfires, similar to what they do in the Midwest and the South and the Southeast for severe weather outbreaks and hurricanes. They'll bring in extra staff to do that. So we definitely do bring in extra staff to help with the social media, trying to push all the forecasts that we're doing, all the preparedness information and warnings and things like that out to social media as best we can. But like you said, it's a challenge. I think one of the big challenges we've been running into is the algorithms that these companies have changed weekly, and so it's hard to keep up. We're not paying for our messages to get out there, unfortunately. And as these algorithms change, they get seen by less and less people, unfortunately, as these companies, try to increase their advertising and things like that. So it's definitely a challenge for us internally to make sure our message gets seen by the most people possible.
Yeah, good old face bag. And do you coordinate with the guys at SPC? They put out these fire weather outlooks. Do you use those products, and do you speak with them on a regular basis when things are active?
So our offices do coordinate with those with SPC, especially on the fire weather side. We do look at their outlooks that they do out for 7 days, and we try to make sure we provide a consistent message. If there's something that they have out that we're not seeing, we'll reach out to them via phone, via chat, and coordinate with them and make sure that we're both saying the same thing, both at their level and our level, that we're the message that we're putting out at the state and local level. So yeah, we're definitely interacting with SPC on the fire side when we're doing our fire weather forecast, especially when they're calling for those elevated or critical fire weather conditions.
And again, one of the problems we have in our world, it's simple messaging. And as Kim knows, and others here, we are trying to hopefully simplify things. And again, I am in a world where we typically don't have wildfire problems, but what products trigger weather radio? Is it a civil emergency message, or what do you issue to trigger everything and to get the word out?
So the preliminary product is a fire weather watch that goes out several days in advance, similar to not as long of a lead time as like a severe thunderstorm watch or a tornado watch. Those are usually hours in advance, but our fire weather watches go out days in advance, similar to like a winter storm watch. And so that gives not only the public an idea that critical fire weather conditions are possible, but it really triggers things for our core partners. And when we send out a fire weather watch, those core partners start to make decisions and potentially move resources to those particular areas and start to elevate their activity a little bit because they know critical fire weather conditions are coming. Now, when we get out to about a day in advance, if those conditions are still looking ripe for critical fire weather conditions, the strong winds, the dry conditions, low relative humidity, and conditions like that, we'll put out a red flag warning. And that goes out again to all those partners. It shows up on our web pages. We'll blast that out to social media, and then again that continues to mean different things to different partners. But a lot of times they're moving resources around and staging folks in advance in case a wildfire does break out. They have more resources available to get on that fire right away and try to put it out. So, those messages don't activate the alarms, the alerts on weather radio or EAS or anything like that. But, if there are times where evacuations are needed and things like that, if the local emergency managers do put out civil emergency messages, we'll relay that information out through our channels as well, including weather radios, our social media, and the things like that.
And so I guess the next question with Kim here and you have you worked social science into this process to try and improve things? Because we've learned in our case, physical science is not really enough.
Yeah, that definitely comes up every time we have a big wildfire event is, why didn't people leave? Did we not get the message out? Did we not get the message out to the public? Did we not get the right message or the right message in time out to our emergency managers to help them make their decisions to evacuate or to move the resources? And so, yeah, at my level, I don't work too much with the social science, but I know I have been on calls and involved in email discussions and things like that with folks at our national headquarters and down into the local field offices about talking about the social science aspect. And I think it becomes really challenging. Like you said, I think we're getting the forecasting down pretty well for the most part, and continue to work on the messaging and getting the word out to as many people as possible. But at some point, we need to figure out how people react to our messages, and can we rephrase things better so people react differently and maybe react more proactively. So that's definitely been on our mind, at least at our level, and down both at our national headquarters and the local office. I know Kim has been involved with some of those discussions as well.
That's so interesting. For fire, we've done such a good job as a country helping people to understand the threat and know how to detect it and respond to it for inside your home. So inside buildings, we have a great response infrastructure established, and we have all kinds of building codes, that handle that threat. But for external fire, there's really not a lot. And part of the messaging is what is available to message to people. What can you really tell them about? This is the area of the social sciences and natural hazards that I know probably the least about. I know that there are folks who do work in the area, but I always am amazed when I see them present and they'll talk about, encountering some of the same kinds of attitudes that we do for severe weather threat. And I feel just like fire is not something that you want to wait on or mess with. It's a personal bias, but I find the threat to be, to me, worse than a tornado, because a tornado, I know that I can get down in my shelter and I stand a really awesome chance of being fine. But a fire, no, that doesn't work the same way. And if you stand the risk of getting trapped if you're not proactive enough. And the speeds that you were talking about, this stuff traveling. I know that's been part of what I've seen some work done, that people just really don't get how quickly the threat spreads, and they don't plan for it, and they can get caught trying to get out. They try to get all their stuff together because they have to get whatever they can grab of their life and go, when they do eventually believe it and personalize it. So it's a tough response situation.
But let me ask you, and I was going to say one more thing here. We got to take a break in a second. Kim and Matt, do you keep metrics like POD and FAR with these fire weather warnings?
Yeah, we do similar to what the severe weather and the winter storm and things like that. We do keep statistics on, if we do put out a red flag warning, did those conditions meet it? Sometimes it can be difficult. You're relying on point data, specific point data. As long as that point meets it, then you meet it. But again, that's just one specific point. But we do keep metrics on both our fire weather watches and our red flag warnings, and lead time and things like that. Definitely.
Okay, well, good. We're going to take a break here. We've got Professor Peters. We'll have Tony Rice in the astronomy report. We're going to come back with the weather roundup, picks of the week, email, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
This is the sixth and final part of a multi-part series on air masses and their classification that we began in late February. In this episode of 101, we'll take a look at Arctic air masses. The source region for Arctic air is northern Canada, and I'm sure that is no surprise to anyone. It has the same characteristics as polar air, except it is much colder with even lower dew points. This air often forms when an area of high pressure becomes nearly stationary over eastern Alaska and the Yukon. With the lack of winter solar radiation, abundant surface snow and ice cover, and the continuous emission of radiation from the Earth's surface, this air will become progressively colder and colder. Temperatures can reach minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And if the jet stream becomes meridional during the same time frame that Arctic air builds, very cold air will spread into southern Canada and the United States, something we've seen a number of times this year. As Arctic air moves into the southern U.S., it modifies to polar air and then eventually to modified polar air behind a cold frontal boundary. This being the last part of a six-part series, we now move on to new and exciting topics. Not sure what those are just yet. If you have a weather question, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
You may have heard word today of a newly discovered near-Earth object that made its closest approach to Earth this morning, just before 10 a.m. Central Time. Asteroid 2018 GN was discovered just yesterday morning, and after several follow-up observations by additional observatories worldwide, it went straight to the top of JPL's list of Earth close approaches. This asteroid's orbit takes it inside that of Venus and nearly out to Jupiter. And today, it passed within 1.2 lunar distances, or the average distance from the Earth to the Moon. Now, while the idea of 1.2 lunar distances might conjure up images of a pass uncomfortably close to the Moon, remember, space has three dimensions: Don't think of this 20-meter wide space rock flying past the moon. Picture it instead sailing above. 2018 GN's orbit brings it in well above the orbit of the Earth and Moon. Yes, it is heading downward and will pass through Earth's orbital plane, but that won't happen until next week, and it will be more than 26 times further away. Looking ahead at JPL's list, the next close approach will be on Wednesday, by an object a comfortable 4.7 lunar distances away. So, all clear. Elsewhere in the sky, if winter seems endless, perhaps looking for the summer triangle will warm you up a bit. Formed by Vega and Lyra, Deneb and Cygnus, Altair and Aquila, and is easy to spot about an hour after midnight local time. Vega, at the top of the triangle, shines the brightest. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
Well, just maybe Aubrey has a couple of emails to read this week.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Hello, Aubrey. She's holding her finger. She's doing this number right here. Stand by.
She's in the no speaking zone.
Yeah. I see. I thought her show was over. That's my bad. Whenever I see her, because for those that don't know, most of us are working during this, and we have responsibilities on the television side, and Aubrey's working in a studio, so she can't talk when there's something going on in there. So you know what? Let's just do this. We'll put an email on hold here for just a second. So let's roll this, and we're going to do this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
See, we'll stall for time with the weather roundup. So, Kim, what's happening in Oklahoma where the wind comes whistling down the plain?
Yeah, lots of wind. Actually, this morning also featuring an earthquake. Well, they're back apparently. That's exciting. So we had.
Is that from the fracking?
Yes, it is. It is. And this morning, they generally happen overnight. That's apparently when they do their wastewater injection. So if you happen to be up in the middle of the night or up really, really early, which I was this morning to work on grant proposal stuff that was due today, it was just wonderful. I got up and came out to work, and it sounded like something was trying to break into our kitchen, and the cats, were with me, and they were just like, is that something we should chase? What's going on? And sure enough, I got the notification that it was an earthquake. So now I know what those sound like at my house. That's exciting. Sounds like someone breaking in. But other than that, this weekend we had this beautiful cornucopia of weather. We started out Saturday with sleet. That was pretty, and then it quickly melted away, and we had a beautiful afternoon, followed by a windy, cruddy, cloudy day. That's just been the weather here. It's been cloudy and windy and chilly. And I know I shouldn't complain. I'm not Aubrey. I don't have 2 days consecutive of snow. But it's Oklahoma, man. You expect to have mild winters are kind of our game. That's one of the benefits. You get tornadoes, but you get a really nice mild winter with sunny days, and you can count on that, and it just hasn't happened. So that's been the case, but we're turning a corner. We're getting spring this week. We might get extreme spring by the end of the week. We'll see how that rolls, but all eyes are on Thursday for that potential. So finally, maybe a little bit of taste of spring around here.
Yeah, and we're watching kind of a big mid-latitude cyclone that's going to pop up the surface lows north of Kim, and that might set up some severe weather Friday for Arkansas and Louisiana, and we'll see, Brian, how that plays out down here Saturday. I'm not totally convinced it'll be a big day, but hey,
yeah,
it's April. You got to watch.
Yeah. Middle of severe weather season in the southeastern U.S., and we had what freezing temperatures this weekend?
Yeah, I think we're all going through these. Aubrey talked about you're going from snow to what, 80 something this week?
Yeah, in a couple of days. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why we have severe weather this time of the year. But I notice it looks like another pretty good shot of cold air comes down the pike next week.
Yeah.
Aubrey, where you're going to get that. So that little 80-something is temporary.
Oh, James.
Well, come on. You look at this stuff. I mean,
I know.
In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if we had some frost here like Tuesday morning of next week, which is like April 17th.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a long, frosty, freezy season. But you know what? Because it has been so cold, we're not even into our growing season yet. So it's really kind of delayed everything, which is good. It's better than the last couple of years where we get that warm spell in February and March, and then it cools. Even if it cools down and, to average in April, then it things are already so far in their bloom season. But so everything's quite delayed this year.
Well, that's good because it was actually quite a warm February, right? It just changed in March.
It wasn't that warm here. We had a little bit of a warm spell, but it was not a snowy February. And it definitely wasn't as warm as last February, when last February was like May. That was quite extreme, and that sent a lot of things over the edge. So we had a little bit of a warm spell, but it was spread out enough where things just didn't continue to bloom and grow. And well, of course, the cherry blossoms, they finally peaked, but they had to push that date back, I think, 3 times. And our pear trees are just now blossoming. So, I mean, we don't have any tulips yet, so that's a little late on that.
I guess we should mention while we're talking, our friends Phil Klotzbach out at Colorado State did his tropical forecast. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Let's see.
And the headlines that ensued after that.
What headlines?
I don't remember which one it was, but another repeat of 2017 hurricane season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically.
Death, doom, and destruction.
No island will be left.
14 named storms and 7 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes. So, Kim, let me just ask you this, and we'll do email in just a second. Let's say I'm an emergency manager. What do I do with this information? Let's say I'm an emergency manager in Gulf Shores, Alabama, or Galveston, Texas, or Corpus Christi, or Tampa Bay. What do I do with this information? I've never understood
question.
that.
At a local level, I can see what people might do at a state or federal level, that they might try to garner resources for, response and recovery. But when you're at a really local level, I mean, you don't know where these things are going and whether they'll make landfall is always just flip of a coin. You kind of have to be prepared every year. So I think that's the thing.
They say that they do this to satisfy the public curiosity, but by preparing, and you're right. What is the answer? Because by preparing, well, even in a below average year, some small town.
All it takes is one.
Exactly.
Yeah. All it takes is one. Bingo.
Yep. And when it's your town, that's all that matters.
Yep. Yeah. And again, I am not knocking Phil and what they do. It's great. It's interesting. I'm not a big fan of seasonal outlooks. I'm not negative on them, but I don't know what people do with the information. The one thing I do find interesting with the Colorado State outlooks, they do analog years. And in what they issued earlier or last week, the hurricane season analogs would be 1960, 1967, 1996, 2006, and 2011. Now, Brian, you were doing the weather back in 1960. What do you recall from that hurricane season?
I was still in high school in 1960.
Okay.
Wait, I may have been before high school. Gosh.
Klotzbach says that 3 of those years had above average. 2 of those had 3 had near average, 2 above average. So anyway, that was in there. But Aubrey, let's do email before you got to go do the 11 o'clock here.
Yes, we can do that. Email. I have a tab up. Okay. We have a James Spann meme. And let me screen share.
Oh, brother.
Yes.
All right.
You didn't see this, James?
All right. The Weather Channel. So for our listeners, it's like an X-ray of your skull. So the Weather Channel with a little brain, basic phone apps with, some things lit up in your brain, local TV coverage with dual pole, triple exclusive Doppler radar. There's like a gem coming in out of your brain, but James span coverage. It's like, there's lights and everything radiating. There's bands playing. Fireworks are going off and all that.
I think what that thing is, my head, Brian, is finally exploding.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I saw it. Is James' head finally exploded?
We all know it's going to happen one of these days, and that's something sent me over the edge, and my head finally blew up. But that's cool. We love the memes.
Gotta love the memes.
And you'll have to scroll down in the show notes. I'll post that meme at the bottom.
Oh, yes. Great.
All right. And then we have a great link sent in from Chris White, article about the 1871 Hawaiian hurricane. And the headline says, Hawaiian language newspapers illuminate an 1871 hurricane and the destruction, how newspapers expand knowledge of this and other natural disasters of the past. So I'm only like 2 paragraphs in, but looks really, really cool. And that would be a great read. So thank you for Chris for sending that in. And Tony Rice, of course, sent in the note about which he talked about, the newly discovered asteroid that will pass the Earth. And let's see. Someone also sent us from Stanford University looking for slow motion videos for a class I teach when she came across this video and wondered how many bored NWS people have already done these things. And I haven't opened the link yet.
Yeah, it's fascinating about slow motion. They actually get inside the balloons and then pop them. So it's fascinating.
When high pressure holds overhead, what NWS employees could do. And then Tarmo, our great friend Tarmo, sent us this. Do we have the breaking news?
Well, let's just roll that.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
All right, Tarmo, and congratulations are in order. The Estonian Meteorological Society was found on March the 23rd as part of an Estonian Naturalist Society. Isn't this video still playing? Sorry. I thought I paused that. A board was elected, and Tarmo is one of those elected into the board. Second breaking news is from the 6th of April. I have been hired part-time by the parent company of sites like weather.us, where I will be doing stuff. Can't wait for the stuff. So Tarmo, congratulations. That is awesome. So if you have a cool email, if you have a guest suggestion with some contact information, what you like, what you don't like about the show, or maybe a topic you'd like us to talk about and bring some people on to talk about, go ahead and send us an email at weatherbrains.com. You can also find us on the Twitter and the Facebook. And speaking of something cool, I'd already sent in my pick, but Weather Tap sent out a tweet tonight. On this day in 1953, the first Hook Echo was captured on radar at Willard Airport near Champaign, Illinois. This led to the report that stated it may be possible to establish radar storm warning systems in tornado areas to reduce loss of lives. And look at us now. So that's cool. That's on Twitter. I just retweeted that. You can follow me. I'm sure a bunch of people retweeted that. That's some really cool stuff.
All right. Something shocking, Brian. I don't think I'm the lead tonight. It says, the weather is like the lead every night. Hot, cold, sunny, cloudy, rainy. We have weather leading the news tonight. They've learned that apparently that works. But I think I'm the second story tonight. So that takes slightly some of the pressure off. Let's do picks of the week. This is where we go around the horn. Everybody shares something weather related. There was a piece that came out, back on Friday from physics.org, why weather forecasters still struggle to get the big storms right. And, this is kind of written from a guy that's probably a science guy, but not a meteorologist. It's always interesting to me to see it from another perspective, but it's basically GFS versus Euro, but kind of a different look at it. So the link to that will be up on weatherbrains.com. Aubrey, what's your pick of the week?
All right, so my pick is actually really cool. I've been doing a lot of research lately, and this website, can you see it? Am I screen sharing? Oh, wait, there we go. All right, so it's Midwest Regional Climate Center. You can generate a calendar with daily, monthly statistical information. So you click on the picture and you select your state and hit next, and you select a station. And of course, Harrisonburg is not in here because it's not in anything, but Roanoke is, and that's close, but it's not close enough. So we'll click April. But now you can get the cool information for April and print out your own calendar. Warning, the calendar may take 15 seconds to load. And the whole point of me sharing this, but that's okay. But we'll have the link for you.
So does this work for the whole country, or?
I believe it does.
That's cool. This is like
Alabama,
really cool.
Birmingham. Here we go.
Wow.
June. Caution may take 15 seconds. We'll wait 15 seconds. We'll see if
we got 15 seconds.
Yeah.
We can play our cricket's noise.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Wow.
And I do have a lot of things up, which may I know I tested it the other day, which is why I had it in here. So it did work.
I could play some random sounds. How about this
one? That's a good one.
We haven't played that one in a long time.
I got one of those people in one of my audiences recently.
Oh boy!
Oh,
yeah, we could play this.
Let's get social.
Social.
With social media, where we can spread the word and grow our reach and find our fans in their newsfeed. Let's get social.
How's it going over there, Aubrey?
We are still waiting. So mrcc.illinois.
We trust them that this thing will work.
Yeah. Aubrey, when I tested your link the other day,
yes,
I found it to be a little slow.
Oh, okay.
A lot slower than 15 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, this has definitely been more than 15 seconds, but it might be worth the wait.
Yeah, it might be, but it's a great idea if it works.
I'll report back in a moment.
All right. So Kim, what you got for us? What's your pick of the week?
Yeah, mine. Since we've been talking so much about local knowledge and people picking up on environmental events and change, it's actually one of these really cool public science endeavors called I See Change. It's kind of like MPing, but for a bigger array of different things that you can report. So this is a great place if you have some frustrations about some strange abnormal weather that you're experiencing or late season events. You can come and describe, take pictures and give verbal descriptions where you live of what the environment is like and what kinds of hazards you're experiencing. Is it flooding where you are? There are a lot of places in the country that have been dealing with that. Is there coastal erosion? They want monitoring of agriculture, snow and ice. They want to know when this is happening where you are. And the goal of it is it's sort of this sort of public science project to use people as indicators of environmental change, to use how we see the world to monitor the environment. It's pretty cool. So if you like to contribute to those kinds of efforts, then this can be a place you can go to report on them.
Awesome. Very cool. And again, the link at weatherbrains.com. Brian, what is your? Well, wait a minute. Aubrey has her calendar. Wait, look at here.
This is the Birmingham calendar.
Oh, cool.
This is like really good stuff. I mean, that is really good.
Yep, June records, precipitation, record events, some good stuff. Wish they had Harrisonburg. MRCC Illinois.edu, Harrisonburg, Virginia. Great place.
Hint, 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 hint.
Yeah, hint. That is awesome. All right, Brian, what you got for us?
I'm going to take the opportunity to do two picks. I'll do Kevin Selly's. And by the way, I want to complain to management about how you guys made me think that I was about to record WeatherBrains on Friday night, because everybody sent in a pick of the week on Friday at the same time. You guys sent in 4 picks like in 30 minutes. It made me think I was missing the show. Okay,
very bizarre.
Very bizarre. Kevin Selly has as his pick of the week. Radar scope for Windows has been announced. So, hey, hallelujah.
So there you go.
And my pick is a little bit related because they have a wonderful blog, and they tweeted out about an infographic that they did on their blog on satellite and radar, kind of the differences between the two. And I thought the infographic was pretty interesting. So I'll have the link up there because I can't. It's got all these, ampersands and underscores and all that crap.
Right. So again, all the links will be up on and that's the show title right there.
No, the show title is Corn and Cauliflower.
Corn and cauliflower.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there you go. That's all right. So listen, I gotta go. It's about that time. Listen, WeatherBrains is typically on the air Monday nights at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. You can watch it live. Many people do that at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. We know that most of you listen to the podcast version, and if you do, we thank you so much. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it's email@weatherbrains.com. That goes to all of us. And our social media accounts are up on the website as well, plus the show notes, weatherbrains.com. On behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a good show. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Y'all have a good week.